What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in to episode 6 of the Gold Nugget podcast. I'm here with my co-host Austin Wilder, and we just got done interviewing Shelby Osborne. In 2017, she purchased her first rental property, and she's now at a whopping 74 doors, and she's a CEO of a couple different companies. And before that, she was in the military, and so we chat about some of the things that she's implementing that's allowing her to see some of those successes. Austin, what do you think about that recording we just did?
Man, I really enjoyed talking with Shelby. She's executing things at such a high level for doing it in such a short amount of time. She's scaled her business so quickly, and I just think it's all based around her mindset and how she perceives and attacks her day. And throughout this podcast, you're gonna listen to what she does at the beginning of her day, some key things that you yourself can take home that I think are really going to immediately allow you to be just as successful.
Yeah, so just key in, listen to how we chat about the miracle morning, listen to how we dive deep into knowing your why. But anyways, let's get to it. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I'm here with Shelby and my co-host Austin Wilder on the Gold Nugget podcast. What's up, Austin?
How's it going, guys? It is a beautiful day today. Shelby, we are happy to have you on the podcast today.
I am so happy to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
For sure. Well, Shelby, I know you've been on several podcasts and you've shared your story several times. So I don't need you to go in too much detail, but would you give the listeners just a quick synopsis of kind of where you're at and where you came from?
Sure. Yes. So currently I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I am the owner of the Five Pillars Realty Group. We have a firm location in both Charlotte and in Fayetteville. And I started in Fayetteville because I got dropped there after being in the Army for 6 years. So I went from college grad to Army for 6 years, decided that wasn't for me, decided to get into real estate as both an agent and investor. And fast forward, now I own the firm and I have 74 rental units. That's the quick look.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so man, just kind of diving into the first little point is you just gave us a quick synopsis of your success. Like you're seeing some great success, some great success. But I want to break it down, kind of going back to some failures, like going through some of those failures. Where was your turning point? Like what's a gold nugget that someone can implement? Like whenever you started seeing success, were you scheduling your day different or did you focus on your goals? Like where was that turning point? What was that gold nugget that you implemented where it just kind of clicked? It was that aha moment that kind of allowed you to start seeing more success.
So I had a couple aha moments across the way. And that is something interesting that I found for sure is that you will start on this venture, whatever path you head down, and you think you have it figured out about what you're looking for in regards to your goals. But then when you either, get well within that path, or maybe you hit that first benchmark goal, you'll see that your perspective and all of your goals tend to change. So I do want to, that's just something that I didn't think about a lot in the beginning. It's like, man, I wanted financial freedom. And then you kind of get to the point where money's not as big of a concern. And then you're like, oh, wow. What is the rest of life about? And I am rambling. However, so I would say that my first aha that is important for people out there is to make sure you pay attention to the things that aren't making you happy. So I found my first big change in my life was when I was in the military and I was pushing every single day. I would wake up at literally 3:30 in the morning and work until about 7 in the Army. And I was not paying attention to how frustrated I was with inefficiencies around me. I wasn't making enough changes about my own world and understanding that I have control of how I feel, how I perceive the choices that I make in my life. So just the awareness to yourself and living the life that you want to live is probably the first step. And I'm going to pause before I just ramble for the next 40 minutes.
No, I like it. I like that too. Can we dive a little deeper into? I think I agree with that. I think it's really important as someone who's an entrepreneur or just in the business world. It's definitely easy to take a job or to start up your own business, and you can get into it and start to realize maybe I don't really enjoy this, but I am making a lot of money or I'm finding a lot of success. Can you talk a little bit of how you evaluated what was making you happy or what wasn't making you happy, and how you came to that conclusion?
Yeah, so there's different phases of that. My first big one was in the military, which I talked about before, so I won't talk about that now. My second phase was about, I'd been an individual agent and investor outside of the Army for about 9 months. And that was another breaking point for me because I was running just as hard every single day working in my business that I had no chance to work on my business. And so again, paying attention and realizing that in order to grow, you have to bring on people and you kind of have to delegate and release a little bit of control in your world in order to expedite your growth. Yeah, I would say that, crap, what was the question?
I just wanted to know kind of like how you realized you weren't happy. Like what were the concrete things that you figured out and it can have other people do to implement into their lives to show them maybe I'm not happy, or maybe I'm not doing the right thing that I want to do with my life. Something like that.
I guess
yeah.
I was gonna say I kind of wanted to reword that question. Like you had said, like you were focusing on what makes you happy, and like for me, the way I was able to focus on what makes me happy is writing down my why. So like that's a gold nugget I can take home. I'm writing down my why every day because that reminds me what makes me happy. Austin, is that kind of what you were asking?
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
What's a tangible thing like that you started doing that allowed you to focus on what made you happy?
For sure. Miracle Morning was actually the biggest change that I made. And it was right at that time point for that second aha moment where I thought I was going to die 9 months in, doing everything on my own. I read this book called Miracle Morning Millionaires by Hal Elrod and David Osborne, and it completely changed my life. And I started implementing savers, is what they call it in the book, which is silence. So you start out your day by not looking at your phone, don't check any notifications, just peace. And then after that, little morning routine stuff, but you go into the A, which is affirmations. So in order to refresh your affirmations, you have to write them down. And I actually have in front of me my very first Miracle Morning notebook from August 27th, 2018, which is exactly the time that I told you guys that we did it. Affirmations. And then after that, you move into visualization. So you take, release any self-doubt and completely banish any of your self-imposed restrictions and visualize what your life could be. And then from there, it's the E in savers is exercise, the R is reading, and the S is scribing. So reading books and then taking notes. So that way you have consolidated notebooks to go back to and refresh. So that really changed my world. There's a nugget.
That's a gold nugget. Like that's a gold nugget right now. Just kind of recapping, the gold nugget is go home, read Miracle Morning, and Shelby, would you say implement it? Too many people read and then go to the next book and they don't implement the book.
Yes, absolutely. That is the biggest thing. People actually ask me that all the time. They're like, well, how do you do these things? Like I talk about how to win friends and influence people all the time because it's a lot about interpersonal skills. And they're like, how do you do it? I'm like, I just did what the book told me to. You read it and then you do it. That's the difference. You don't read it and forget. You read it and then do it. So
see, that's awesome. We just dropped 2 gold nuggets to go home, do Miracle Morning, and then actually implement what you're reading. I actually ran into that. I was stacking up books. I was like, oh, I'm looking at 20 books, but I didn't know where to begin because I wasn't implementing. So that was actually my own issue. I was running into analysis paralysis, but I love it. That's some good stuff. I don't think I've read Miracle Morning yet, but let's see. Can you remind me one more time? So it's affirm, visualize, exercise, and what was the other 2?
It's SAVERS is the acronym. So silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. SAVERS.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so I think you said or about a couple seconds ago, you said you're going to pause and chat about that first one. You want to move on to the second one?
This was my second turning point. I still do this to this day. I do miracle mornings when I wake up. And if I can tell when I don't, my whole body can tell when I don't, because the rest of my day is not crystal clear and focused. If you don't set aside consistent personal time for your own self-development, for your own clarity, you will quit being able to be proactive in your days and your life will become reactive. And that's no way to get ahead. So, yeah.
I want to dive deep a little bit into, you just mentioned the 2 words, proactive versus reactive. That seems to be something that people can get into a reactive state and not realize it. Can you give us some tangible things on what is reactive and what is proactive?
Yes. So reactive is pretty much everything that hits your phone or your inbox or anything with a screen, from what I've found. And so the way that I do it is after I do my miracle morning, I will think about the top priorities of my day. And I'll pick out, these are the things that are my biggest priorities for the day, the 80-20 principle. So this is my 20%. And then from there, I focus my entire day around that. And I work almost entirely on do not disturb or with my phone face down without notifications, because each one of those is just a distraction away from the things that you actually need to be focused on. So generally what I'll do is I'll let them build up. And then after I set my clarity focus, I'll have a chunk of time blocking, where I go through and I hit all the emails that I need or am able to quickly action. And then after that, I go to work offline and turn off my notifications and I dig into my 20%. And if any of those things that came in as emails need to be shifted to my 20%, I can relook that tomorrow. So I try to, what I did in the beginning, which is what a lot of people do, is they want to hit everything right away as soon as it comes in. But what I found is that as long as you manage people's expectations, managing expectations is everything. Say, hey, received your note. I'll be back to you within 48 hours. People don't care. 24 hours, 48, whatever, 12 hours. It's just when they feel like they're being blown off. They don't like that. But communicate and manage expectations, and you can pretty much do anything.
Awesome. I feel like if we
I'm talking too much.
No, I love it.
Not at all.
I feel it. Okay. I feel like if we stop the podcast right now and they only implemented what you dropped so far, they would start seeing success. That's some good stuff. We haven't even hit all the gold nuggets yet, so I'm loving it. I'm excited. I get real passionate about this type of stuff. But let me ask you, kind of going back to like my focus on this podcast is bringing it to these core principles. Can you tell the listeners, or even correct me if I'm wrong, but my personal belief is I believe that those core principles are way more important than the business knowledge. Because if you had that business knowledge, but you didn't have your miracle morning routine, then that business knowledge, you wouldn't implement it. Can you kind of speak on how important those core principles are?
By core principles, you mean like the daily tasks, the daily things that you do to set your own self up for success? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, it's so important. Especially since the more that you can identify clarity in your direction and what's important to make the biggest progress towards whatever your goals are, the more you can also identify what you're good at and what other people should be doing. So that was one of the big changes that I had in my business as well, is I started changing my mindset as to not when am I going to do this, but who is going to do this? Because the majority of people out there are better at certain things than I am, and they enjoy doing those things. So as long as you have the right people and you're okay with leveraging, delegating, and letting other people grow and thrive where they're naturally best fit, then that will also expedite success.
Yeah. Love it.
I just say stuff and kind of wait. I'm like, oh, are they gonna?
No, that's good. I tend to be a processor. I like to listen and analyze, and so if I ever pause, it's because I'm just enjoying what I'm listening to. So I want to chat about another thing that's really important to me, is just like kind of knowing my why. You may already do this kind of in your miracle morning, so you can tell me if you do this separately or not. But like one of the things I do is every single morning I write out my why. Like I want financial freedom for this, and I ask myself that like 7 times, and I go into like this deep understanding of why I want to do what I want to do. And so can you chat about like how do you go about that process? Like how often are you reviewing your why?
So hard. Okay, so whys are hard for me. And I feel like people talk about them all the time with you find your why and all that stuff. And I get it. I really do. But I feel like it changes so much. And this is kind of what I tapped on in the beginning. It's like when you're first starting out, it's really like this was mine. I want financial freedom because I want to ride away into the sunset on, and never look back for my responsibilities. I want to travel the world and and then you kind of get to the point where like money, because you don't need that much money. Like people always say that they want a shit ton of money. You don't need that much money. And then you kind of get to the point where you have enough and you're like, well, no, what's bigger? What is out there that's bigger and more than like, I don't know. So this is probably not the answer that you want, but whys are challenging for me and it changes frequently.
No, that's completely understandable because like at different phases of your life, you're going to have different type of whys, different things that are going to motivate you. Like Justin, right now, he and I, we're both, I mean, we're not married yet and we don't have kids yet, but I know one day we are going to be, and like that is going to completely change what our perspective on and what's going to motivate us. So like I completely understand a why is a changing thing, but I do think it's so important to understand what it is because that's what's going to keep you pushing through the hard times, you know?
Right. And the hard times do come, and they come frequently. There's going to be days where you don't want to get up, where you want to hit snooze on your alarm. So it's true. Having something that's bigger than yourself in that moment to keep yourself moving in the direction on that trajectory is incredibly important.
So
I have multiple whys. I have little whys.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Yeah. So I think
I got them.
I mean, I agree with you 100%. I can tell you a personal example of 2 years ago. My why was the financial freedom. So as a young single guy, of course, financial freedom makes sense. I was had a selfish mindset. I wasn't thinking about a family, but I get married in August, and every single morning I write down, I want to be able to provide for her. And so like my why changed. And I think as you mature, your why tends to change. And that's kind of what you were saying is like, it's always changing, but I think it's going to change throughout different seasons of life. But regardless of whether it's changing, I still think it's important to at least whatever season you're in is have it.
Totally. And then there's also different, because I just pulled out my notebook because I was like, I'll give a better answer. There's different levels of why, at least for me. I called them tiers. So like on this first tier, your why can be your impact on what, your direct relationships, like your family, your spouse, your kids, that like lower level, very interpersonal why. And then also like the next, I'm literally looking at mine. So like the next tier would be kind of your local level why and your impact on community, your impact on so for me, it'd be like 5 pillars, my crew, my team, and maybe even like, for me also like CrossFit, my CrossFit community that I have out there, or the local neighborhood that I live in. So it's like that. And then there's like a larger scale impact where it's like, how can I change the world? How can I put a ding in the universe? So I'm with you. Okay.
I like, go ahead, Justin.
No, you can go ahead.
I was just going to say, I like that. Something I like about, your personality and like the way your perspective on things is that like, I like how you view that money is simply, I mean, it's, you can get as much as you want, but like, it's not the end. It's an ends to a mean, but It's not why we do what we do. And I think that, a lot of people early on in their stages of investing and grinding are like, just chasing, they're just chasing the almighty dollar. And that's important to a degree, but I do think it like, and I like this about you, how it's like, you've got so much other things that you're trying to, tend in your life. And I think that's like so important because, there might come a day when, if you didn't have that outlook on life where you're just like, I've got stacks of money and nothing to do with it, nobody to share it with. And, there's really no point aside from getting to count your dollars.
And that's so true. When I first started, when I got out of the Army, I was used to being a leader in the military, and I was sick and tired of dealing with all the problems that come with people. So I was like, I'm going to be an individual agent. I'm going to build my portfolio, and then I'm going to right away and not deal with people anymore. But you over time, when your perspective just changes and you realize that like, what is any of this if not for a positive impact that you can make or build with other people? It's like, that is the biggest why of all,
So for anyone listening, I mean, I think a really good gold nugget is to constantly evaluate your why and try to note if anything is changing in your life that might change your why.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I love it. Like I write down my why every morning, and I'm looking at my notebook right now, but if I go back and scroll through it, I think every few months it's changing. But every few months I have a why that's going to push me through the hard times. Like for example, I can give you a personal example. Is just a few weeks ago, my parents came in town and I didn't go to bed till 2:00. But I had to get up at 5. And I remember my alarm clock went off And the first thought that went through my mind was, I have to get up so I can go. Because I had a meeting at 7, and I was like, my why. I was like, if I skip that meeting, it could get me in a position where I may not close this deal, and I'm not going to be able to have the funds to provide for my wife in the future. And like that thought went across my head. And so it motivated me. I was like, I don't care if I have 4 hours of sleep, I'm getting up. And whereas 2 years ago, it would have been like, my why was just trying to figure out who I was. And so like that exact scenario had 2 different whys, but I was, regardless of my why, I'm constantly evaluating it. And so I love it. That gold nugget that Austin mentioned is go home and just, it doesn't matter if it changes through different seasons, go home and write it down and constantly evaluate it.
And so one of my recent ones actually, that I can't believe I didn't bring up initially, is a lot of people do struggle with why too when they're feeling lazy, or they're feeling like, wow, I'm going to put forth so much effort, and then what does it even matter? Like ultimately, what does it matter? And so the realization that I came to recently with the help of one of my, it doesn't matter, but he's laughing over there. Okay. Is that why not? It's like,
why not?
So people talk about like, why would I put in so much effort? It's like, well, what else are you going to do that's better? Like, you're going to use this time to go and like be brain dead somewhere, be lazy somewhere? You have so many years in life to live, you know, if all goes as planned, and you're going to just sit around and do nothing with it. Why not choose to do the best that you could ever, like the most audacious goal that you can think of, and press forward towards that? Why not?
One of the quotes that I heard when I was younger, and I think that can speak a lot to what you were just talking about, is it goes, why choose failure when success is an option? And exactly what you said. I think that's so important. I love that. Why not? I think that's really cool. We haven't had that, I haven't heard of something like that perspective in a while. I think that's cool.
It's a good reminder. That's awesome. I think that I think I'm at a loss of words. I kind of had a little brain fart on what I was about to say. I kind of had like 3 things going through my head, but I love the things we're chatting about. I think we kind of brings us to the next bullet point of like, right now we're talking about like our why and how that's going to drive us through our failures. And we already mentioned like how failures are teacher, but what about like goal setting? Like, do you have any, like, how do you set your goals? Like I do 5-year, 3-year, 1 year. Like, what are your methods on that?
It's so hard because the ones that that I was just looking at were like 70 years. No, actually, so that's difficult and it's changed. And when I first started out, I had very specific 1, 3, and 5-year goals, which it's so cool to write that down, guys. It's because you can look back at it. And like literally right here is my 5-year goals as of, I wrote it 6 September 2018 for 6 September 2023. And that's just pretty crazy. But yeah, I think it depends on the person about how they want to chunk it down. But having, regardless of what year amount, having that big picture perspective of like where you see yourself in your life, 100 years from now, and then chunking it down into actionable steps as small as you need to, because that's the biggest thing I found as well. Is like sometimes people will set goals and they'll just be too big that they don't know the first step, and then they'll put it off and put it off and put it off. It's like you have to make your goals small enough so that way you will take actionable steps towards them. But yeah, so again, I didn't answer your question. 5, 3, and 1 for you, Justin, was awesome.
No, you did. Basically, what I got out. Basically, to recap it, what I got out of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is like there's nothing wrong with setting these huge, massive goals, but too many people don't know what the daily actions require for that. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to be brave enough to set these huge goals, break it down into these small goals so that you know what the daily, like your daily habits have to consist of to achieve those big goals. So no, really that gold nugget is like, if you want to go set this huge goal to be a multimillionaire in less than a year, it's possible, but know what it's going to take. Break that down into your daily goals. Is that basically what you're saying?
Yes. And then also onto that is you have to make sure that you implement both air game and ground game into your world. So like what I mean by that is a lot of people will get tied up in once they'll sit down and they'll think about their goals once and they're like, in 5 years, I'm going to do this. And 1 year I'm going to do this. And then they'll start hustling every single day. And that's what I call your ground game. So you're like in the weeds, you're in the trenches, working, but you have to make sure that you integrate your air game. So that's when you lift yourself out of your daily grind and you look at your world and the path that you're on from like a strategic perspective and make sure that you are still moving and focused in the right areas. Because you won't realize it if you keep your head down the whole time. Before you know it, you've gone off course and you haven't realized it. And then when you finally do pick your head up, you're like, shit, well, now I have to correct. And I've lost a month on my 12 months to reach my goal. So.
I love it. So really, I love it. I love that terminology of ground versus air. I've always called it like the 10,000 overfoot view, like just kind of being 10,000 overfoot and constantly evaluating. So really to break that into a gold nugget is don't get caught in the whirlwind or the hustle, as you called it. Don't get caught hustling so much that you don't take time to have that 10,000 overfoot view or that air view and kind of working on the business, not in the business. Is that basically what you're saying?
That's exactly what I was saying.
Awesome.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, now speaking of being on the air, like kind of speaking specifically to entrepreneurs, what does that air view look like? What do you focus on when you're in that air view to kind of remind yourself?
So what I do is I just pull myself out of what I'm working on. I literally it's visualize lifting myself out of the business and looking at the entire company or business from a bigger picture perspective, and then seeing where our shortcomings are. And it's not, well, sometimes it is hard. And sometimes an outside perspective is definitely good. Hopefully you have some trusted people within your world that you can ask for perspective on. But otherwise, it's pretty easy to see which areas that you are sucking in or that you're avoiding. A lot of people will avoid the things that they need to work on most, especially if it's something that they don't enjoy doing. So you either have to freaking suck it up and attack those things, or you have to give it to someone else to do, because you should not just keep kicking the can down the road because you don't want to do it and you don't want to face your problems. So one or the other.
Yeah, I love it. Well, man, I feel like there's some awesome gold nuggets. I've hit the points that I really wanted to hit. Shelby, is there any like final gold nuggets that you feel like you wanted to chat about before we close things up?
I would just say that you need to realize that everything that happens or fails to happen is because of you in your world, in your business. And once you have that, it's extreme ownership. It's the buzzword everyone's been using. But once you understand that, and more than understand, like live and breathe like that every single day, your entire world will change for the better, because you will have the ability to create the change that you need to see and stop blaming, stop self-pity, and just moving in the right direction.
I love it. Austin, did you have any other bullet points you were wanting to chat about?
No, I really like that, Shelby. I really like your personality, the vibe you give off. I think that maybe, I think that's in my opinion, that is a huge contributor to somebody's success, because nobody wants to be around somebody who's, just kind of in their own little world. Like, it's so important to, to just be kind, be sweet, be happy, energetic, because that, in my opinion, is gonna want people to be around you. And when people want to be around you, that's just going to expand your network. And I don't know you, Shelby, I don't know you well at all, and you don't know me well at all, but I would be willing to bet that you have an incredible network and you have a great team that you're surrounded by.
As team,
I believe it. I believe it. And anyone who's listening, I mean, we can't speak enough to how important it is to learn how to leverage others. And I think one important step of doing that is just starting with yourself and who you are and how you treat people.
Totally. Love that.
I love it. Really, to bowl up this whole podcast is Shelby seeing a lot of her success through knowing who she is, like regardless of the chaos or the structure, like she knows who she is, and that vibe transfers through the company and through all the employees. So like, that's probably the biggest gold nugget here is like, who are you and who, like, why do you do what you do? Like, kind of bowling it down into that. So that's awesome.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was fun.
Absolutely,
no problem.
Shelby.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Guys, I need y'all to go home and take 2 or 3 of these gold nuggets and implement them today. My favorite gold nugget from this episode was when she was chatting about the miracle morning. And let's dive deeper into that. What she did was she actually read a book and she implemented it. Now I know that sounds simple, but too many people overcomplicate that. They read book after book after book and they don't implement it. Guys, just go home, pick a book and implement what you read. For her, it was Miracle Morning. That's her routine. Guys, go home, find a routine and implement it. Anyways, thank you.